Let's get started. Welcome, Dave.
Yeah, so welcome to everybody to Studio 3B. Dave Lamson and Brian Hotzik here. We're sure that people will still be trickling in, but for those of you who are already here, you've got the advantage, because if you've joined us before, you know that we like to do a contest at the beginning with a city behind us that we have posted up there. That's a nice one.
I tried to Google a couple of guesses. I wasn't even
cut
close.
off a little bit now that I'm seeing it on the screen there.
Oh, you can't see the top?
You're not seeing all the top of it. That building that's closest behind me actually resembled the Empire State Building quite a bit. So this one I did not get. Usually I'm very good at naming these. I didn't know this, but if you know this, put it in the chat. We've got a gift card coming your way for attending. Hopefully one of you can get it right, but we'll be.
And if you're in that city, just don't tell anyone. You can cheat and just, still type it in. So guess what that city is. Maybe I'll fix the background later and get us a better view of it.
Okay. But, well, maybe it's harder to
guess.
Google search it if you can't snip the entire thing.
I like it.
Any event, we're here. We're talking Ivanti Neurons for DEX today.
Yep. That's the plan. One of my favorite products to talk to customers about. It's a little bit counter, at least in my personal opinion, to everything you hear about in the industry news today. We are choking and dying on nothing but AI, and I don't know how you guys feel about it. I give it a little AI fatigue. I'm waiting for some huge results, right? I was promised everything was going to change, and we got some cool tricks, but I feel like it's maybe not delivering as much. And I feel like what we're talking about today, the Neurons for DEX, is a lot more meat and potatoes. It's more actual, real things I can do to help my end users and manage my business versus promises of, oh, hey, this is going to solve it. It's a little bit more direct results on that. So I definitely took.
And I'm sure the people who have joined us, they understand that DEX is digital experience. Tell us a little bit about where this fits within the Ivanti product portfolio, especially there's always confusion around that Neurons name and what it means. You're very good at explaining that.
Yeah, Neurons for DEX, DEX is what it's branded as, and the concept behind it is digital experience. What in the world does that even mean? It's just a silly marketing term, but I think behind the silly marketing term is a really important component. And really, you got to start thinking a little bit more about philosophy. I don't think we do that a lot in technology. We are a little bit more sticklers about, well, how does the checkbox work and where does the database go? And we don't think about what our users feel. And why that matters is especially in the changing times, right? We're not fat and happy and everyone has unlimited budgets and unlimited employees and so forth. We have people coming to us and having issues, and we sometimes feel like we accidentally got the bad rap. We're sometimes the department of no. No, you can't have this. No, you can't do that. Led by the CIO, right? That's the person at the top of our department. And it has a lot to do with consumerization of technology. I think the mobile devices, iPhones, Androids, et cetera, they really show that. Right now, I'm at my house. I'm sitting on my couch. I want an app. I want something delivered to me. I want to put on some crazy filter and make myself look much more handsome. Anyone can do that. And just click, and it's all done. And when they come to us, hey, I need Adobe Acrobat. What do we say? It's complicated. Did you fill out this form? It takes 4 days for us to deliver it, right? There's just a lot of barriers in between them and the technology, whereas in the consumer side, that's all gone away. It wasn't that way 25 years ago. For people that have been in the industry for a while, they haven't recognized that the world changed around us and we didn't adapt as quick. So I think we've got to flip that script and start feeling what the users feel, understanding what they feel, and try and be more proactive with them. And I'll show you a little bit more what I'm talking about things today that we can't wait for them to call us. If we do, it's only going to frustrate them more. They're only going to give us bad opinions to the executive team. Then the executive team's like, why aren't we getting rid of all these people? It's just all AI that solves all of it, right? We know that can't happen, but good luck explaining to VCs and private equity and teams, the people that don't understand how difficult it is to manage IT in organizations. they're going to just not get that. They're going to just go fire everyone. So I want to flip that script. That's what we're talking a lot about today with DEX. And it's not AI. It's, again, meat and potatoes. Some of the boring stuff is part of it.
Yeah, but that boring stuff, as you're saying, very important.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to streamline that for people so that they're spending less time doing things manually.
Exactly.
Obviously. And the Ivanti Neurons for DEX, cloud-based.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah, it's a cloud-based product. So same kind of attitude we had around a lot of our previous generation of management technology. It felt like we spent a lot of time on the tool itself. Well, I've got to roll out agents. I've got to spend time creating these different configurations. If you were in the Ivanti ecosystem and you used a product like Endpoint Manager, hey, I want to make this change. I've got to understand 12 different things. I've got to understand how the agent works, how agent settings work, how I push out those agent settings, how a policy sync interval functions, right? So I'm spending a lot of time babysitting the tool. Kind of my analogy to that is an airplane, right? An airplane, for every, 200 hours it's in the air, it's got to be on the ground. It needs a lot of maintenance, right? And that's how that last generation of technology was, a lot of maintenance for using the tool. I feel like Neurons for DEX and the cloud-based platform is a lot more like a car. Yeah, you got to change the oil every once in a while, but you get a lot more usage out of it between those maintenance intervals. A great example of that is, the agent can automatically upgrade itself. So a lot more doing. We give up some of the levels of complexity. That's a good and a bad thing. There's some trade-offs with that, and we'll kind of review what that looks like. But I think overall, most customers are happy to give in some of the complexities. A great example of that is training, right? I did training for many, many years for previous generations of product. And we had a 5-day training class, right? 5 days. We'd spend 3/4 of a day just on patching. And we would just have to get into the nuance of it and the details and the strategy. There was just a million options going on in there. And with this new product, you can have the entire thing up and going in a couple of days, right? And all of it, right? It's not just even learning about it. You can actually implement it a lot more intuitive. And it doesn't really stop there. A lot of customers think of it as just, hey, I'm going to replace my previous management tool for endpoint management, right? Be it SECM or MECM or whatever we're calling it these days, or compared to Intune, or hey, we use another product like Ninja or something like that. Really, it's a different conversation when we start talking about it plugging into the rest of the Neurons platform. So Neurons is just a brand name for Ivanti, and Neurons for DEX, obviously that's what we're talking about today. But when we start going into, hey, I need to worry about the life cycle of these devices, right? Where did they come from? Who bought them? What's the purchase order number? What's the depreciated value? Do I have a certificate of disposal for the hard drive when I shred it? Things like that. This leads into it, right? And we can feed a lot of our data. I'll show you how our connector logic can scoop up that data and go shove it over into a bigger picture product like Neurons for ITAM, Neurons for ITSM, populating the CMDB. So it's not just a standalone product just for endpoint management. It can kind of feed into everything else.
And we'll get into it more towards the end. You've brought up the legacy Ivanti Endpoint Manager product and patching from the on-premise versions. There's a great migration path that Ivanti offers. It actually allows you to run both simultaneously. You can keep the on-premise if there are features about that that you really like while you're getting up to speed on the Neurons products. And you're not double paying for both, but we'll cover a little bit more about it at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did get a note that maybe our audio is cutting in and out a little bit. I apologize for that. We'll see if we can, maybe once you get up and around, that'll take care of itself. We are recording this. We will send out a recording afterwards. We record locally, so those problems should be resolved if anyone wants to see it that way.
Maybe I'm just choppy.
Maybe you
it's just on Wednesdays I don't sound very well.
Maybe you are just choppy
as well.
We do apologize for those problems, but hopefully we can take care of that.
So let me jump in and show you a little bit more about how the technology works. If you have any questions, please put them in the little question chatty thingy right there. And if you can stump me on a question that I should know that's inside the tool, I'm going to make Dave give you some kind of prize for that, some kind of gift card or something. It's got to be a legitimate question. You can't be asking me what that city is back there. I even forgot which one it is. Dave will have to correct. Or did we get an answer for it? Did anyone come back?
No, it's not Memphis. I haven't looked at the.
It's not Memphis. Yet. That's what I kept trying to say that it was.
We did get a correct answer.
Oh, we got a correct answer. Yeah. What is it, Dave?
It's Mobile, Alabama.
Mobile, Alabama. So, I like it. Okay, so if you can come up with a legitimate question that's about this product. that I can't answer, and it's not just, who programmed it or whatever, Dave's going to pay out on that. He's going to be the judge on if it was a good question or not. So, okay, let's jump in. Let's go and take a look at the Neurons for DEX platform, just kind of a quick high-level overview. Then we'll dig into the details on how it works and some of the things that I think is great about it. So what we're going to see here is a lot more real-time information. That is something that we really struggled with in years past, not being able to understand what's going on right now versus what was going on, hey, an inventory scan 3 days ago, things like that. So a lot of this is actually real-time information, as you can see here in the list. If I click on a device, I can get exactly what's happening on the page right here, right now. This information is now only a couple of seconds old. This right here, this is my favorite view to look at. If I'm a technician working for your organization and trying to troubleshoot and help out a user, this is what I want my eyeballs on. It's going to give me great information like, what's the CPU and memory happening right now? Who's logged into it? How long has it been up? Oh, it's been up for 15 days. Maybe it needs a reboot. What's the battery health? Ooh, we're going to talk about that one a little bit later for sure, 59%. What is it connected to? So I really like to look at this view as my starting page for any kind of troubleshooting I'm going to do on a device. And again, it can be real-time information there. If we click on this device dashboard up here, it's actually going to give us a deeper dive, a little bit more information into that device. I've got access to things like remote control over here on the side, right? I can, open up traditional remote control, but we also even have agentless remote control. Agentless remote control is, hey, I don't want to install a permanent agent. Maybe it's their personal device or something like that. I can just give them a code, a URL, have them, go back and test out their remote control, and then it deletes itself when it is done. Maybe I need to install an application on their device. Hey, they called me and they said they need, 7-Zip or Chrome or Firefox or whatever installed. I could just check this box and do an ad hoc installation on their device. As we go over here to the left-hand side, we can look at things like performance. Now, I like remote control just as much as the DEX person, but think about the interaction you have when it comes to remote control. Again, go back to that psychology we talked about. You've got to interrupt the user, right? Because you're going to take over their keyboard and mouse. They're going to step up and walk away from their device to go get their next cup of coffee. It's going to impact them. I've got to minimize their applications. Maybe they're sensitive information. They're over in the HR department, and I'm looking at stuff I'm not supposed to. By the time it connects and renders, I'm 3 or 4 minutes in before I get to the meat of troubleshooting. Whereas, watch what I'm doing right here. I'm actually looking at the processes running on their machine right here. And maybe I don't want this process running. It's running slow. Let me stop that. Or I can look at their services. Here's all the services. Oh, hey, your whatever service is not running. Let me start that for you. So instead of having to do remote control as a main mechanism to look at processes, take a look at the services, things like that, I can jump into it right here. I can also do some basic console commands like, look, it went and successfully started whatever that random service I clicked on was. I need to know what your IP address is. What's your default gateway? What's your subnet mask? Maybe that's part of the problem. I can run an IP config. I could go up here and ping something. Let me see if you can ping and contact that server. So I'm not remote controlling here. I'm sending a command down to the machine, having that machine come back up to me and just rendering those results. I can also query it, give it more direct questions. I need to know what's going on with antivirus. On that one machine, what's your antivirus status? Oh, well, yeah, it's running Microsoft Windows Defender and it's, and it's on. Well, what's going on with BitLocker? As of right now, well, as of, 3 seconds ago now, it's not protected. Great, that's the problem. Why is the BitLocker not enabled? This is a great way to ask a little bit more individualized questions, but I could also take a step back and say, oh, well, that's a problem. What's going on with disk encryption on as an overall amount? Not just on that one machine, but I found one machine having BitLocker problems. What's going on with overall? Oh, well, yeah, look at all these different devices I have. I use the word disk encryption because we actually work on PC and Mac, right? And we don't use BitLocker on Mac. We use File Vault, so I can get that information back here. It tells me more about it. Oh, hey, what is the provider? Is it encrypted? What's the status? What's going on with antivirus, right? What version of antivirus are we running? What's installed? What's not installed, etc. So I can find machines that don't have it, ones that have the antivirus I want. Where's Windows Defender running, just kind of as a default. It can give me this kind of information. But this is where I want you to start thinking about those things that might impact a user. We give you a bunch of example questions down here in the bottom, but a couple of really exciting ones, at least in my opinion, are battery health. This is one that you really need to start paying attention to. This is something that is really near and dear to our customers. Our end users that have laptops, they know the exact health of their battery. How do they know that, right? Isn't that something that we're supposed to know and they're not supposed to know? That's how systems are supposed to work. But the reason they know is they know they can't go to the conference room for that 2-hour-long meeting unless they drag their power supply. They know their battery's going to die, right? So they have a lot more direct connection to something that maybe we traditionally didn't have. So battery health is a great way to look at it and say, yeah, I've got, what do I have here? 4 devices that have bad, or at least in this case, poor batteries, right? This one's at 59%. So we're gonna talk about some actions we can take against that with bots, but start thinking about things like that. What about battery health? What about log-on performance, right? When they go to log into their device, what is the health of that? Does it take a long time? Is it a short time? Again, something they are very well aware of. I can go and open up and take a look at the details. Oh, whoops, I didn't mean to click back. Let's open that up one more time. So log-on performance, what are some of the devices that I'm having issues with? It even's going to go and show me a Gantt chart saying, oh, well, yeah, you were, stuck at whatever for MS Edge win start for 30 seconds. Maybe there's a problem with the startup, things like that. What about internet latency? We have a lot of people working from home these days. Now, are they going to understand the mechanical problems with if their Wi-Fi is the issue versus their internet connection, right? Well, they may not know that. They may just say, oh yeah, IT makes my computer run slow. So I can come back here and measure that and understand what's happening with it and kind of take action upon that. So this part is edge intelligence. This is where I go find problems. What is going on that I maybe didn't know about? But next I want to talk to you guys about bots. Bots are something that is really, really interesting to me because I feel like it seems like an extraordinarily simple principle. And I kind of say, well, haven't we been doing this for the past 25 years on our devices? Don't we have this kind of logic already enabled? And when you start peeling back the onion of how we manage our devices, the short answer is no, we don't. Right? These smaller problems, the battery health, the disk space issues, the problems with internet latency, these are not complicated problems. We just don't know about them, right? So what has to happen for a user to pick up the phone and call the help desk? They have to reach a frustration point. They have to get upset enough to pick up the phone. If they're anything like me, I hate that. Man, I'll do everything in the world I can to avoid picking up the phone and calling support. I'll search the internet for 5 hours before I do that. We all know users are different. Sometimes they're gonna, pick it up right away, but they have to reach a frustration point. I wanna try and nip that in the bud. I wanna go and say, can we solve that problem before it becomes a larger problem? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to open up your help desk and I want you to look at the top 10 help desk tickets. Number 1, password reset. Forget about that one. That one's more of an identity issue. We're not gonna solve it with these bots. But numbers 2 through 10, I bet if you do the analytics on it, you're going to find some pretty silly problems. I was out of disk space. The service I used to VPN wasn't started, right? My battery was bad. A lot of little problems like that are going to crop up and you're going to say, well, wait a minute, how do we solve those? Why are they actually calling us? Why are they not solved right from the root? That's what we're going to do here today. We're going to create a bot to solve smaller problems, hopefully before they even become actual problems for our users. So what do I mean by that? First of all, let's look at the queries we have over here on the left-hand side. Now I'm going to throw out just some example queries. If you guys have any, or example bots, if you have any and want to put it in the chat and we can help build them here on the call, we can do that. But let's take a look at a couple of them that are relatively simplistic. Let's look at disk space for a second. So I have a query over here on the left-hand side that says, show me the free disk space, right? And what I can do with that is I can go and run it through a filter that we have over here on the left-hand side. I want to filter the results of the previous step. And I want to look at something like I would look at the property of free disk space in gigabytes. That'd be a good example, and maybe I want to know if that is less than or equal to 25 or, whatever, or a percentage or whatever that ends up making sense for me. So if that happens, what do I want to do? Well, I don't want to go and open up a ticket. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? That's going to be what happens if I don't do anything, but I want to take action against it. So over here on the side, I've got an action called clean disk. I'm going to connect that down here and say clean disk. Nothing fancy's happened at clean disk. Empty the recycle bin, delete the temporary files. We're not talking about rocket science here. It just goes and does that action. I'm going to go connect it down here and say I want this to run on a regular basis. I want it to run, whatever, every week, once a week, every other week, doesn't matter. I would just go pick whatever I think the appropriate frequency is, and I'm done. So how long did it take me to write that bot? 2 minutes, 1 minute, 3 minutes, whatever. I show this to customers, and a lot of times they come back to me and they say, Brian, what's the big deal? You just wrote a script to empty the recycle bin and delete the temporary files. Big deal. When I was an intern, I learned VB script or a batch file. We could have written that 25 years ago. This is nothing fancy. And I always push back on them. I say, we're absolutely right. You're doing this today then? You've got a process. Your SCCM console goes and pushes this off. You've got an EPM script tied to a query that goes and does this. Every time I push back and say, I know it's not this rocket science, super fancy new universe that we just created here. It's that meat and potatoes I was describing. Every time I push back, they say, oh, wait, yeah, no, now that you mention it, you're right. We don't have a process for this. We're not checking on the health of our devices and trying to maintain the health. We wait for the health to become unhealthy, and then maybe the user calls us. So I want to try and, again, nip that in the bud. Have that zero call resolution. I want to fix the problem before they pick up the phone and call us and have first call resolution. So zero call resolution. So that's a simple example of disk space. What about some other ones? Let's go take a look at that battery health. Another great example of something we need to be doing. I want to go and look at all the batteries. And when they become poor or terrible, that's a big problem. Now, I can't write a script to fix a battery. That's, I wish I could, but no. We're going to have to open up a ticket for that. But think about the psychology of what's going to happen here. I'm going to say, open up a ticket, even link the CI to the ticket. I can do some cool stuff like that. Now, the user is out in the real world. They have a device. That battery is going down over time because it just degrades the health over time. It's just how our batteries work these days. They suddenly reach poor or very good or whatever I want it to be, and their phone rings, right? Hey, this is the IT department. We've been monitoring the health of your battery. We want to come and replace it. I mean, our users would fall out of their chair with glee. This is the level of proactive we need to do. This is not incredibly difficult, but this is going to start raising our reputation level in IT that we are being more proactive. It is a lot more hands-on touch, things like that. So other examples would be, hey, I've got a service, I don't know what it is, my VPN service or something like that. I can monitor the status of that, take a look at the service called, VPN whatever, and then same kind of thing, I would go run it through a filter because I don't care when that service is running and working just fine. That doesn't matter to me. So I would look at the status and I would say like when the status is equal to stopped as an example. Well, what do we do in that context? Well, let's go and start that service. So I'm going to say start service. And go start that VPN whatever service I have there. Nothing super special here, but we can lower those calls in that would be just associated with service. So those are just some very, very simple examples. Over here on the left hand side you can see we can query lots of different stuff. Look for their BitLocker status, look for CPU usage when it's high. Take a look at their smart health on their hard drive if their hard drive's going to go into predictive failure state. Their HTTP ping, they've got high latency at home. Again, I can't fix that with the script, but I could tell them about it, right? We've got an action down here in the bottom. These are all the things we can ask questions about. Down here at the bottom, we've got action we can take action against. I've got the ability to interact with the user, right? I could display a message, I could send them a message on Teams, things like that. I can interact with the user and at least give them some kind of notification that, hey, your latency sucks. You're going to have a bad day. Maybe you should, adjust your Wi-Fi or something like that. So those are just some simple bots that I've created. We can also, up here at the top, I should have showed you that we can turn them into a custom action. Sometimes I don't want the bot to be run by the system. Like that disk space one, it's going to evaluate it and then it's going to run it when the system thinks that should be the case. Sometimes I want a technician to choose that, right? We write knowledge base articles all the time. We're like, okay, when the customer has this problem with Outlook, you need to close Outlook, you need to delete this temporary cache, you need to run this command to fix this, you need to, restart Outlook. It's a series of steps that you need to do. We can build that as a bot, turn that into a custom action, and if we go back over here and take a look at this machine we were kind of looking at the start, look at what we have over here on the right-hand side, custom actions. I can have a technician make the choice to run it. We did a webinar a couple months ago, probably some of you guys were maybe even on it, about Windows 11 upgrade, right? When we've got a kind of an obnoxious thing like that we've got to interact with our user, interrupt them for a couple of hours to do a Win 11 upgrade, we could actually, oh, hey, now that I fixed your printer problem, is now a good time to do Windows 11 upgrade. Great, I hit that button. I walk away as a technician because I know it's going to go take all the actions that were created as part of that bot. So we have bots that are automatically created or automatically kicked off by the system, and then bots that are run by our technicians.
Brian, we have a question. Can you think of examples of bots that could reoccur to assist with Neurons patch management on workstations?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things we can do with that. There's actually some hidden functions. I sit down with the bot team, a couple of weeks ago, and gave them some of my recommendations because that's what customers are asking for. Over here on the right-hand side under queries and actions, there is not a way to ask the patch management side of the house to do something or the agent management side of the house to do something. Bots currently live in a little bit of an island, for lack of a better term, and that was some big feedback that I gave them. I want an action here called run an inventory scan, run a security scan, things like that, and we're starting to get more and more of those. So I don't think there's a great way to do those kinds of things yet. With the exception of, doing some custom functions. We can absolutely always fire off a PowerShell, go run the commands that live over in the patching side of the house to do different cleanup and things like that. I also had a customer that we found a lot of the problems were actually from patching were not our problem. They were problems with Windows updates getting stuck in weird statuses. So we wrote some bots around registry, right? Where we would go and take a look at registry values. We would reset registry values, like Windows Update would get stuck in this half on, half off mode. And then that was screwing up the patching ecosystem. So usually what we can do is dig into the patching ecosystem, find out why it's fundamentally failing. Most of the time there's registry issues, there's disk space issues, there's other underlying issues with the machine. Let's have a bot created to solve that problem. But yes, I'm going to pressure them to have more and more data in here to pull the log files from the patching ecosystem as part of that, so I can have that show up in here. So they're a little bit far apart today, but one great thing about the bots are they can also iterate a lot faster than the rest of the Neurons ecosystem can. So we can go and ask them, hey, add this feature. They can roll that out a lot quicker than the larger Neurons ecosystem. So good question though. All right, survey bots here. We have the ability to ask questions, right? We did some cool surveys in our Windows 11 webinar about like when they want their Windows 11 upgrade to happen, or I can go and create various surveys out there. You know what? This is a little bit tricky because it does not integrate with the survey system over on the Neurons for ITSM side. So we're creating a separate independent survey ecosystem. So we've got to discuss if that's the right answer on where to put that information. We also have the ability to create, when you go to create a bot here, we've got a bunch of templates. Don't start from scratch. Don't start with just an empty blank canvas like I did. Look at all these ones we have in here. Let's restart the print spooler. Let's have that disk cleanup one. Let's find invalid certificates. Let's look at failed logins from disabled accounts. Let's clean up profiles that have not been logged into in 30 days. Let's look at environment variables. So lots of different goodies we have here from a template perspective. That way you're not having to write it from scratch, right? Here's a Windows 11 compatibility checker, right? Run that instead of, creating one from scratch. And you can learn more about it here, and it tells you about what it is, and you hit create there. It's going to open it up once you give it a name, and all that's going to be kind of ready to go. So that's bots. Again, that's one of my favorite parts of the tool. We're not doing that a lot in other systems, and I think it's a very powerful tool.
Before you move off, you mentioned end users falling out of their chairs, and I agree if you let them know that their battery is failing and you order a new one. Do you also do that same interaction if you run that disk cleanup utility and just send the customer an after message that says, hey, we noticed you run out of disk space, we ran the following tools, you should be good to go?
So that's more of a philosophical question than it is a technical question. Technically, absolutely we can. From a philosophical perspective, a lot of people that have run help desks before will say what they don't know can't hurt them.
Yeah.
And if you tell them that, they'll pick up the phone and call and say, I got a message that popped up and said to clean my hard drive. And the technician will say, yeah, you're welcome.
I was thinking maybe you just freak end users out that you're watching them that closely. And
it is a fine balance there in hiding things that they don't need to know about. They need to know about their battery health. They need to know about asking to reboot. Certain things they don't need to know about. Let's not tell them. But that is we might as well argue over Game of Thrones versus House of the Dragon there. It's more opinion at that model than it is fact.
Okay.
So if you want to display a message, great, go for it. Your choice. Just decide if that's right for your organization. Here's an example of the Teams cleaning bot that instead of telling them after the fact we did it, if they find we have problems with disk space, we actually reach out via Teams and give them an option. This is like the default message. Hey, we see that we need your hard drive cleaned up. We give them buttons. The button says, yes, clean up my stuff, or no, thank you, I'll do it myself. I'm actually a bigger fan of this than the after the fact because you're asking for permission to do something. They're not as likely to come back and just call about a message. They're like, oh yeah, of course they sent me this message, and I pushed yes or no, and I satisfied the condition of that this particular bot. So we can interact with them there. We can find out that, oh hey, yeah, we found it. Your downloads directory was super full. Would you like us to delete your downloads? Or no, I'm going to clean it up myself. Same kind of thing. We're asking for permission to do things that will most likely cause less impact to them. Okay, so I burned through a lot of time on bots because it's my favorite. Let's go talk about just a couple of other things that are important and parts of the tool. Patch management is another really important thing that we do inside of the tool. This gives us the ability to roll out patches, right? Just like the name suggests. We can have routine maintenance. We can have priority updates that are maybe like a different schedule. Browsers, for example, they might need to be updated a couple of times a month, whereas operating system patches maybe only once a month. And/or there's also, showing 0-day responses where, hey, I want to have a schedule that runs on a very regular basis in case there's this big 0-day that came out. So you can choose whichever level you want to do there. We also have a new feature here in our Ring deployments. I really like this because it lets us create a testing system, right? A testing ecosystem in order to roll out our patches so it's not just everyone all at once, right? So I can have things like a test phase, an early adopter phase, a production phase, and have it either move through it manually or automatically, or I can have 2 rings if I don't want to have as much testing in here. Down here I can say, okay, when do I want that to run? Is it going to be Patch Tuesday based? Is it monthly based? How quickly do I want to target the completion of that? What time do I want to start on which day of the month? Or how many days offset from Patch Tuesday would I like to start that off? How many days after that should we move to the early adopter ring? When should we evaluate the success rate? Things like that. I can pre-stage the deployments just so I don't have to wait for go time to get the patch files out there. The patch files are already out there. Doing it based on severity is a very, very common methodology. Moderate, important, critical. A lot of customers tell me that's what they're pushing out. We can do these other patches, non-security patches, if you want to. Just your choice. We can also do it based on patch group. Patch group, I think, is really fantastic for its exclusion options, because oftentimes we come back and say, you know what, it's a Microsoft patch. Of course we're going to roll it out. Of course we're rolling out Chrome and things like that. Oh, but you know what? We've got application X, I don't care, whatever, Java, something like that. It breaks stuff when we roll it out. So I want to go and create a group called excluded patches. I want to go put What I don't want to roll out, I just went through some random stuff in here with Zoom and Wireshark and whatever. I want to select excluded up here at the top. Now it's 99% automatic. All the stuff up here, yeah, Microsoft stuff, yeah, it's just gonna go. But if I find a patch I don't like, I put it in this group and it's not gonna roll out, right? You can also do it as an inclusionary option where you're picking the individual patches. I'd highlight this and say include. That's a lot more manual, which is fine in some circumstances. Just depends on how automatic or manual you want this to roll out. You can also do it based on individual vendors. So we support 130 some odd third-party vendors. Maybe you want to go turn off a vendor. There would be a reason. I don't want to have to go put Java in that exclusion group. I want the system to just do it for me. Let's go turn off these versions of Java automatically rolling out, or all Java altogether. We'll patch that in a different patching cycle. I just don't want them to automatically roll out. So piece of cake for me to go and do that. Down here at the bottom, we talk about reboot. To tell you the truth, I've been doing patching for many, many years now. It's quite a few, it's a couple decades. Patching is a piece of cake. Don't let anyone tell you patching is hard. It is easy, easy, easy. Now, on the other hand, rebooting is one of the hardest things we do in technology. Rebooting is a huge, nothing but landmines everywhere. You can blow everything up the first time you reboot the CEO's laptop in the middle of an important presentation, and they come down and say, we will not patch anymore. Oh man, you're cooked. That is not good. So rebooting is a very particular art. We've got multiple different levels of it in turning, critical, mandatory, advised, so I can control how that works. And our team can sit down with you and kind of just try a rebooting strategy to impact the user as least as possible. No one is ever happy with patching. No one. Even the people in IT don't like patching, right? It is a thankless job. No one ever gets an award for it. You're not going to get called up on stage and say, great job for rolling out Patch Tuesday for, February 2025. It is only ever going to be a problem. So we're never going to make anyone happy. Our goal is to make them the least upset as possible. That's our goal. So a reboot strategy is very important. So we've got these different levels as part of it. And under the agent section here, when I go and change the way that my agent policies work, I can refine that pretty well. I can go in and say, okay, I've got different levels of users. When I come back and ask for a certain reboot, I've got those critical, high, mandatory. Which one should I be looking at? Let's edit it, and I'll show you a little bit more what that looks like. Mandatory is kind of that middle of the road monthly patching cycle versus a critical that would be a 0-day, things like that. I don't like user canceling reboots. That is usually a terrible idea. Unless you're, I don't know, maybe you're a city or county something and you got people that run the 911 emergency services. Yeah, absolutely. Let's give them a cancel button. Healthcare, things like that. But almost everyone else, it's a bad idea. Why? I told you I've been doing patching for a couple of decades now. What do you think happens when it pops up on my computer? Yeah, you got to reboot. Oh man, I'm Googling, how do I kill this process to keep this from rebooting? Now's not a good time, right? And I'm in the industry. This is what I do for a living, and I hate it. So canceling, if you give them the option, they're going to hit it most of the time. So I don't necessarily like that. User deferring it, reboot until sign out. I don't love this either. It's okay, but it puts too much control in the hands of the user. Unless they reboot, they're going to hold up our entire patching schedule. So I don't necessarily love that. I just like to give them, I like to be generous, right? Sure, I'm gonna let you postpone this reboot. You can postpone it up to 4 hours for 2 days. What? I don't care, right? In the patching universe, these things are a marathon. They're not a sprint, right? We don't need to demand that they patch this minute. There's some really funny stats when you look at patching. First of all, 75% of vulnerabilities are never exploited. No one ever writes an exploit for them. So 75% of the patches don't even technically need to be rolled out, but we still do it anyway, right? But of those 25 that end up actually getting exploited, the vast majority of them, 99.99% or whatever, some very, very, very large percentage of it, they don't get exploited until 60, 90, 120 days after the vulnerability is released. Rarely does a 0-day come out. They show up in the news a lot, but percentage-wise, they're very, very low. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. I'm okay delaying a couple of days here as long as I get what I want and I don't get that, pushback from my users that, hey, you rebooted during my important sales presentation. So lots of different goodies that we have in there. Okay, a couple of things I want to talk about is our ability to pull in information from other data sources. But I want to talk a little bit more big picture on the why behind that for a second. So let's head over and talk about kind of the architecture of what I want to do, right? I want to have a broader inventory perspective. We do that a lot in tools like this that are endpoint management. But they've had a fundamental problem in the past, and they put blinders on, right? You know, they've said, well, this is what I know about. You know, it could be SCCM, it could be Intune, it can be Endpoint Manager, it could be, you know, anything. When you log into the console, it says, I know about these 500 devices. Doesn't know about anything else, right? Well, that's kind of a big problem. So I probably want to have my information up into CMDB, AMDB, right? Some kind of central repository up at the top. That really should be a destination for a lot of my information. Well, the problem is I've got all these data sources, right? I've got a data source like Active Directory. Active Directory is terrible, absolutely garbage about computer data. It's just got the name, it barely can tell me the operating system, can't tell me the serial number, things like that. I might have, you know, SCCM or the Endpoint Manager product, or other tools that we have in our ecosystem are like VMware. Maybe you're a VMware shop and you have virtual machines that live in that space, or you have Rapid7 Qualys Tenable vulnerability scanning tools. They've got some interesting information, but you know, it's in a silo over here. Maybe you're using an MDM tool or Intune, or you're migrating from SCCM to Intune, and geez, those two are very disconnected from each other. Keep going, our security controls, our agentless patching tool. The bottom line is we got a lot of things, and those things have information, but at the end of the day, they're separate from each other. So here's what I want to do. I want to bring in the discovery aspects of the Neurons for Discovery, and that's, you know, that's a part of it, right? Neurons for DEX has a bunch of different things, but Discovery is one of them. I'm going to use what's called a connector here to connect from all these different data sources. I'm also going to have, you know, that agent that we've talked about that does a lot of our patching and so forth. That's just another data source that we have. But what we're going to do here is we're going to park this data into something called a data lake, right? Because there's, we'll have a separate conversation about CMDB and ITAM and so forth. I'm sure we've done a webinar on it. We've got recordings on the YouTube page. But there's a principle you have to worry about when it comes to a CMDB. You've got to have faith that it is accurate. If it's not accurate, oof, it really just starts to degrade from there and go downhill. So we've got to maintain accuracy. So I don't want to just shove everything up in there. So we do important things like deduplication. Think about a device. A server might show up here and here and here and here and here 5 times. Having 5 instances of that in my CMDB or my asset database, that's a bad thing. So let's deduplicate it down. Let's also normalize it, right? How many spellings of Dell help you out? If you have 47 spellings of Dell, nah, it doesn't help. Let's shrink it down to a single copy. Well, when we deduplicate, we can do a really cool thing. And I want to show you what it is, and it's reconciliation. I guarantee you've heard these kinds of questions around the office. Why does Active Directory have 1,000 devices and SCCM has 800? What's the difference between the two, right? And we're like, okay, well, you know, who knows Excel well and can do a VLOOKUP table, something, 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 right? It's terrible, right? So what we can actually do is reconcile that and compare our data sources. And then after that, bring it up into the CMDB. I always encourage customers to have a filter though, because we're going to do raw discovery on the network, right? That's a common thing that we do. Hey, I've got devices here. I want it to probe every single port, and it's going to find garbage. It's going to find the refrigerator in the break room for some whatever reason has an IP address that I don't know why. Can we manage it? No. Does it have SNMP? No. It's just a dumb IP address. That doesn't belong inside of a CMDB when it's just a MAC address and an IP address. So let's not bring it up into there. We can still have it in our discovery database. Just don't bring it up to the top. So let me show you how those connectors work. A connector, again, is using an API style of connection to gather some amount of data that I care about. That data could be software licensing data like Adobe. It could be purchasing data from CDW. It could be antivirus data from CrowdStrike. It could be warranty data from Dell. Google information if I'm a Google Workspace customer. We got a bunch of connectors to our Ivanti products. There's Neurons for MDM, Neurons for ITSM, our service mapping, the different things like that. Gives me the ability to pull in Jamf information. Maybe I'm using Macs. I've got a lot of Macs. I use Jamf. Lenovo warranty information. Microsoft 365, Active Directory, Rapid7 Qualys Tenable. Why would I care about a vulnerability scanning tool? Well, they sometimes scan the network and find things that I didn't otherwise find. So very easy to create these. Like, let's talk to VMware. I want to pull all my virtual machines, throw it up into my asset repository. I just go in here and say, let's connect to VMware. We've got this thing called a connector server because VMware is an on-premise application, yet the rest of this is all cloud. So that's how we talk down. vcenter.virturillo.local. I'm going to ignore cert warnings. I'm going to say, what my username and my password is. Do I want to bring in virtual machines that are powered off? Well, I don't know, probably not. So I'm going to say if they're not running, don't bring them in. And let's do it every day at whatever clock. Done. There. That's how long it took me to set up a connector. Sorry, excuse me. We're talking minutes here, right? After I have that, I go up here to the top and I take a look at my smart advisors and I go into device reconciliation and I have all my different data sources. I can then say, okay, let's ignore all of them for a minute. And you can see up at the top, I've got discovered by and not discovered by. So this is when I start asking questions. Tell me devices that were found in Microsoft Active Directory, but I didn't go and install a Neurons agent on. That's a big deal to me. Oh yeah, look at that. I've got 93 devices. And then I can come back here and do, get some more information and get some, do some inference against that. Hey, this one was found just by Active Directory. It's Windows 7. What's probably the likelihood of that? I can infer that it's most likely just a stale record. That happens all the time in Active Directory. Whereas down here at the bottom, oh no, look, this one was found by a whole bunch of stuff. It's almost certainly real. It just slipped through the cracks. You can't normally log into one tool and say, what do you not know about? It doesn't know what that means. It only knows what it does know about. This helps us bridge the gap between them. So I've had customers buy the product for just this one feature right here, being able to reconcile between our different data sources. Okay, I've showed you some of the exciting parts. There is a bazillion other things, software distribution, more about remote control and so forth. But I'm going to get the hook here soon, and Dave's going to throw something at me. So I want to just refer to you. We'll even maybe put it in the chat a longer recorded video of the Neurons for DEX product that we've done that goes into a little bit more detail. But I will pause, see if we've got any more questions, Dave.
Yeah, no more questions this time, Brian.
Okay, so with that being said, I think we can go back and wrap it up and see. I did not get stumped with any questions, so you don't have to pay for any gift card.
There's still time.
There's still time. There's still time. They could have came up with a good one.
Yeah. So you covered a ton of information, and you touched on, as you said, a lot of the broader Ivanti Neurons ecosystem.
Yeah.
Rather than me putting it in the chat, I'll make sure Larry includes it in the follow-up email that we send.
Great.
It'll have the link to the YouTube page. You can call out some of those specific videos
Great.
that are very popular. We talked, I brought it up at the start about current on-premise customers migrating and some of the benefits of that you do get to run both simultaneously. And use both. Why would people want to continue to run on-premise?
There's a couple features that are not in the cloud today. Really, we're just down to pretty much one, and that's imaging.
Right.
Imaging is something that they are working on implementing into the product, but it doesn't have the same kind of issues that an on-premise technology does, right? I got to copy a 35 gig image file from this device to that device. I got a Pixie boot. Those are not really cloud-centric technologies. So we're going to find out a little bit more about what that evolution is going to look like, but that's really the only big feature that we're missing out on today.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. And we did get one more question we could touch on very quickly. I don't think it's going to stump you. Are you limited on how many connectors you can have, and is there a cost for each one?
Yeah, that is a good question. So originally when Ivanti rolled out this ecosystem, they broke it into small products. Neurons for healing, Neurons for discovery, Neurons for workspace, and Edge Intelligence that was part of workspace, and the other one that I can't remember. Anyway, they found that didn't make a lot of sense. People weren't piecemealing it and buying just onesie-twosie things. So what they did is they wrapped it up into a bundle called Neurons for DEX. That's kind of what we talked about today. And when you buy Neurons for DEX, you get all the connectors. You can have them unlimited and install all of them if you want to. only if you did not buy the Neurons for Discovery SKU. Like, for example, maybe you were one of the earlier customers, you just bought Neurons Workspace as an example, or the platform or something like that. You were given one connector for free. Everyone got Active Directory as just kind of like a default, but you could pick which connector you wanted. But then you would have to pay for extra ones. But that's a pretty rare event. If you don't own it and you're just looking to buy it, when you get Neurons for DEX, you get all the connectors. And I encourage customers, absolutely throw everything you can at it. It's going to give you better data. You're going to have a better grasp of what's going on out there by using more and more connectors as part of it.
Oh, and I may have missed one other. How's the new DEX score calculated? I don't think you touched on that.
Yeah. I didn't touch on it because it currently is not user configurable. So it's not my favorite feature, to tell you the truth. The DEX score is the concept that I want to just eyeball something, right? I want to have a check engine light or something similar to that, that when you open up a device, you can say, hey, it's a 42. Well, that's bad. It might be, it had blue screens, the warranty might be out of date, maybe there's issues with the disk space on that machine. Hey, someone needs to look at this. It is unhealthy. And I didn't have to look at 27 metrics. I looked at a single metric that's just the DEX score, the number. Problem is, that's all hard-coded. I can't change that. I can't go and weight it and say, well, I don't care if the warranty's out of date. That's not something we do. So again, I met with product management about a month ago now, and they showed us a preview of us being able to change the weights of those different scoring so I can actually manipulate that. So it will get better over time. As it stands right now today, yeah, I can show it to you, but you're going to say, okay, well, I want to tweak it. Or how is it exactly calculated? And I have to say, well, it's all invisible behind the scenes and you can't do anything about it. So, but expect that to mature and get a lot better for sure over time.
Okay, well, I think we're clean. I'll make one more pitch for that YouTube page. We're also always looking for topics of interest. If there's something that you don't see on there you'd like us to record, hit us up and we'd be happy to put one together on there. Quick note, I got a message from a customer yesterday. They actually used our discovery video to help sell the concept we were pitching to their provers, and right. They did end up buying the product. So good to see that there are some interesting uses for those YouTube videos. With that being said, thank you everybody for joining. We will get that email and recording out to you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks everybody. Have a good day.